Okay, let's go to the actual configuration to begin with of a simple two-zone firewall two-zone. So very simple configuration to begin with. So configuration steps is going to be define the zones, configure layer 4 inspect type class map to match on traffic, then configure the layer 4 inspect type policy map. We bind the class map or the class maps, and for each class map we define a firewall action, drop, inspect, pass. Then we configure the zone pair to bind the policy map, and we attach interfaces to security zones. Verification wise, we verify the security zones. Now highly recommended to use the new command version, which is show policy firewall config zone. The show zone security is the old version of the command. Both of them show pretty much the same thing. Like the new command is show policy firewall, the old command is show zone security. And the new command makes much more sense. And also, since we're here, again, always what you learn, look at the command. Try to understand if the command makes sense, because it does make sense. If we configure zone-based policy firewall and we want to verify the zones, then the command is show me the policy firewall config for the zone. It's very simple, very intuitive. Or show zone security, the old command. We verify the class maps. We likewise show me the policy firewall configuration of the class maps. Show me the class maps pretty much. Or show class map type inspect, the old command. Verifies policy maps. Show me the policy firewall configuration for the policy map. So show me the policy maps. Or the old command of show policy map type inspect. Verify the zone pair. Show me the policy firewall configuration of zone pairs. Or show zone pair security, the old command. So this is just configuration verification. But then when we send traffic to the firewall and we want to, if we put the inspect action, which means we want the firewall to keep track of the sessions flowing through the router, to put the sessions in a state table, then we verify which sessions are active with the show policy firewall session. So show me the policy firewall sessions for which zone pair, because you may have multiple zone pairs. Or the old command show policy map type inspect zone pair sessions. The new commands for me are very easy. The old commands are not that intuitive from my point of view. Now to begin with, we're going to get back with the NAT configuration. Let's initially kill NAT by removing this interface from IP NAT inside, IP NAT outside, those two interfaces. Actually, those three interfaces. So let's for the moment remove NAT by just disabling IP NAT inside and outside on those links. Let's do that. We're going to get back with the NAT combination of NAT and zone-based policy firewall later on. So router 1 show, I'm going to say conft interface gig 00. So if I remove the IP NAT statements, then if I remove the interfaces to members of IP NAT inside and outside the main, then all NAT configuration is ignored. Because NAT configuration is being, let's say, interpreted by the router as long as traffic flows to NAT enabled interfaces. No IP NAT outside. This is a very easy way to disable NAT without removing the NAT configuration. If we say to verify show IP NAT statistics, we should see that we have no NAT enabled interfaces, and gig 00 is still there. So let's say, this. Show IP NAT statistics. And there we go, it's better. No inside, no outside interfaces. Okay, now let's configure a very simple firewall policy to begin with. So I'm going to define, we're going to ignore for the moment that tunnel. I'm going to define LAN zone and attach that interface. LAN. And internet zone and attach that interface. And then what I want is, initially, all TCP UDP traffic going out, a very simple configuration, all TCP UDP traffic going out from the LAN to the internet to be inspected, which means to create entries in the state table. So let's do that. So let's go on router 1 and say conft. We follow up on those steps. We define the zones to begin with. So you say zone security LAN exit, zone security internet exit. Then we say we define the we match on the traffic in a class map. Class map, I'm going to call it CMAP TCP UDP and match protocol UDP, not light. First of all, what is wrong with this config? Let's see who pays attention to class, really pays attention. What is wrong with my config so far? So is my config good so far? Of course it's not, right? This is a regular class map, not a type inspect class map. This is used for quality of service or for other purposes. Correct, Peter, you're right. So this is a regular class map. So class map type inspect. Name it CMAP TCP UDP. And we say match protocol UDP match protocol TCP. Now if you say do show run class map, is this good? Is this a config valid? Is this a valid configuration in here? So what do you think? I'm not asking you to think about anything special. Just look at that class map. Is this a valid configuration? Since the router took it, it means that syntax-wise is good, but is this going to work? Of course not. I'm going to get back here. I'm going to change it. Because it's match all. How can a traffic be both TCP and UDP at the same time? Match all means both conditions or all conditions have to be met for traffic to match on that class map. How can a packet be both TCP and UDP at the same time? So let's change this to be match any, and then to make traffic work, and then I'm going to get back put it match all to see it to see that it doesn't work. We can change this on the fly. We don't need to remove. So do show run a class map. Now match any means that traffic can be either UDP, either TCP. Now it's good. So we matched on the traffic. Then we have to define the firewall policy. Policy map. Let's say PMAP. And I'm going to name this to be LAN to internet. I'm calling the class map that and the action. Of course, type inspect. Well, now the problem is that if I define a policy map of not type inspect, so let's remove that. So of course the class map and policy maps have to be of type inspect. So policy map type inspect, because the regular class maps and policy maps are used by quality of service. So they have to came up with a different type of class map and policy map, but keep the configuration to be based on class map, policy maps, and service policies so that it's easy and known to engineers. So in the policy map, we bind in here the class map, and we say the inspect action, and exit. Then we define a zone pair, which zone pair given a name ZP is going to be known as ZP LAN to Internet. Source zone pair security is the command, probably zone pair security. Source LAN, destination Internet. So I'm saying that if traffic flows from the LAN zone and gets routed out on the Internet zone, what do I want the router to do the traffic? Service policy, type inspect, and apply that policy map. Exit. And the last step is to bind those two interfaces, interface gig 00, zone member, security, LAN, and gig 01, zone member security, Internet. Now I'm going to put in there, let's verify the configuration, then let's make sure traffic works, and then I'm going to guide you through the building blocks again. So let's say show policy firewall config zones. Show me the zones. So we have the Internet zone with one member attached, and it's a member of that zone pair as well. That interface, this zone, it has one member interface, and that zone, it's a member of a zone pair. We have the LAN zone, where we have one interface member attached to that zone, and that LAN zone is a member of that zone pair. And we have the self zone, which cannot be changed like the name, or cannot be deleted. Show policy firewall config class map. So policy firewall config class map, we define one class map of type match any, named CMAP TCP UDP, and we match on protocol TCP or UDP. Show policy firewall config policy map. We define one policy map, and we stated that for traffic matching that class map with TCP or UDP, we take the inspect action. And as you can see, I have not configured this, as I said, is the class default with the action of drop. So what this means, I'm gonna put everything in Notepad in a couple, and then I'm gonna walk you through what this means exactly. And then the last step, show policy firewall config zone pair. And we have one zone pair named ZP LAN Internet with a source zone of LAN, destination zone of Internet, and service policy applied. So because the zone pair just defines the direction of the firewall policy, but then the service policy attached to the zone defines what traffic is controlled and how. Which that policy map states that TCP or UDP traffic is inspected, and all other traffic, class default match any, is being dropped. So let's say show run class map. Let me put this in Notepad to walk you through the configuration again. Show run class map. Put everything in here. Show run policy map. Again, I have not configured the class default. It's there and it makes sense. I'm going to explain that in a couple. Show run zone, of course. And show run section zone pair. And show run section interface and zone member. Interface include. There we go. So for the first part, I'm just gonna, it's very simple. So we define the two zones, and then we attached each interface to its own zone. That's nothing special. Then let's look at the building, at those main blocks of our firewall policy. So in the class map, this is the first main block. In a class map, we match on the traffic. In a class map, we match on traffic. And in our case, we match on TCP and UDP. Then the second main block is the policy map, which controls what do I want the firewall to do with each type of traffic class. And what I do is I bind that class map, I call that class map in the policy map, which states for the traffic matched by that class map, I take the inspect action. And for all other traffic, so for TCP and UDP, I'm going to inspect it. And for all other traffic, which is going to be like ICMP, I'm going to say drop. So class default matches on all traffic which is not matched by the other class maps configured in the policy map. And then I define the direction of the firewall policy. Like if you'd compare this with the SA, is this high to low or low to high, for example. And what I'm saying is, if traffic flows from the LAN, so in this direction, source LAN, destined to the internet. So if the router routes traffic flowing LAN to internet, not internet to LAN, LAN to internet, then if that's the case, if a router routes a packet, if it receives it inbound on a LAN zone interface and routes it outbound on an internet assigned zone interface, then I want the router to take actions on that traffic as configured in that policy map. Because there we go, I attach that policy map in there. So it's very simple how those boxes are connected. So what this means, as we're going to see, is now, for example, so now when traffic flows from the LAN to the internet, what the router does is first it's going to look, do I have a zone pair configured for that direction? And it has. Oh, so I have a zone pair configured for that direction, LAN to internet. What is the firewall policy? Which means what is the service policy attached? Okay, I have that service policy. Then what does that policy map tell me to do? So for all traffic flowing LAN to internet, the router is going to parse the policy map top down and stop on first match. Which means for TCP and UDP traffic, it is going to match on this class map of type inspect CMAP and inspect the traffic. But for all other traffic, which is like ICMP, because again the class maps in the policy map are processed top down. So if the router sees ICMP traffic going from LAN to the internet, it's going to first see, do I match with the ICMP traffic on this class map of type inspect CMAP TCP UDP? No. So then it's going to say, okay, let me see if I match with the ICMP traffic on the next class map, which is class default, which matches on all traffic. So it's going to match with the ICMP traffic, and there's going to be a drop action. So let's see that happening. Of course, we're gonna change around this config in a couple, but this is a bare bones simple configuration of the zone-based policy firewall. There's a question from Matthew. Christian, what actually does the inspect do? Obviously, it inspects, but specifically how? So I'm going to explain once. Well, I'm going to go to. We're going to also speak about advanced inspections, like probably after like 3 sessions or so. We have something else to do before that. But for at this point, what we have to know that it does is that it's going to create an entry in the state table to track the session in order to allow traffic to flow back in. Let's initiate the TCP or UDP traffic LAN internet. I'm going to show you what that means in a couple. Of course, it's going to do other things behind the scenes as well. We're going to speak about those advanced things a bit later on in the day. Okay. So let's now go and send a telnet packet from PCA to router 3 to match on our firewall policy on the inspect action. Let's go on PCA. Let's say CLS and telnet on router 3. Telnet 555.3. Okay, if it doesn't work, let's make sure router 1 has a route again to 555.3. It should. Let's make sure I have bounded the interfaces properly. Gig 00 to the LAN, Gig 01 to the WAN, to the internet. Let's confirm that in Notepad. Gig 00 was attached to the LAN, Gig 01 to the internet. Class map is okay. Let's tell it again. Let's see if PCA can reach the default gateway list. 10, 10, 11, 1. And it can. Okay, if it doesn't work, let's do the following. Let's say show policy firewall config, not config, but stats all. So it states that for this policy, zone pair LAN to the internet, for that zone pair, which has this service, this policy map attached, I matched on protocol TCP successfully. So I have 2 packets because I had 2 telnet sessions. So I matched on the policy correctly. But something went wrong. Well, of course, what went wrong is very obvious. Router 3 doesn't have a route back to 10, 10, 11. Let's confirm that. Router 3, because 3 is in the internet, right? Show IP route 10, 10, 11, 0 doesn't have a route there.